Hey, how's it going? I really wanted to play more of that music, but well, YouTube is kind of a dick about that, so I don't want to get in trouble. Um, anyway, Ashworlds. Wanted to talk about it. Been having a lot of fun. Been doing it a long time. Um, so, Ashworlds is a Star Wars West End Games RPG. Now, I have heard a surprising to me because people seem so down on Star Wars in the community, but on Twitter, I've heard quite a few people. I can't even count how many, um, 20, 30, 40, maybe more, state that the D6, the Star Wars D6, is one of the finest RPGs ever done. I can't disagree. I think that's absolutely true. Um, I love West End games in general. So I've been wanting to play online for a long time. I had been. I'm now doing it. That's what I'm talking about. But uh, I just don't have a social circle that's into gaming that much. You just it's the way it is. So playing over the internet is the way I have to go. I spent a lot of time looking for people to play. Finally got enough people to play. Uh, what I wanted to do was I wanted to play. This is before Disney. Well, not technically before Disney bought uh, Lucas, but it was before they came out with some of these movies. Um, I wanted to always do a story about the beginning of the rebellion, the beginning of how did they form, who formed them, where did they get their weapons, where were they training, how did they assemble, what was it all about, in that sense of the thing. So I wrote something based on West End game material, a couple of the novels, and just some things that I pieced together from watching behind the scenes and things like that. Came up with Ashworlds. What I wanted to do was find a place in the Star Wars geography, the legends, uh, that was very uh, sparse in population. And the Ashworlds came up as being almost devoid of human life or any life for that matter. And I said, that's perfect. So I chose the Ashworlds to be a place where a portion of the original rebellion started. So the story is well, some people when they're RPG people they go, oh, I don't want to hear a story or a backstory. Well, um, try to keep it brief, but uh, it's a section of space that was, uh, according to the lore, was wiped out as far as life when an ancient war between the Hutts and a now extinct race, extinct made by Hutts during the war, was they bombed it with chemical weapons or some version thereof, plasma weaponry. I believe it was told. So this, what I did is I wrote this. There was at the end of basically episode 3, at the end of the Clone Wars, some of the bigger families and industrial giants that were involved in supplying weaponry and technology to the Confederacy of Independent Systems went to flee from where they lived because they knew that the newly formed empire was going to come and arrest them as war criminals. So they were brought to a planet in the Ashworld sectors that was discovered to be spared by the Hutts because there was no enemy on it. So it's the last planet in the Ashworlds that's capable of sustaining life. But that was made secret. And Mon Mothma, as a young senator, uh, was aware of this and and helped some of these families escape and take refuge on that planet. And The security part of it was that the new rebellious entities that were coming about from Mon Mothma, from Bel Antilles, uh, and from Garm Bel Iblis, they put a station on Kintoni to help protect these people and to surveil the area in case the Empire did show up or some other entity. And it was one of the places that they secretly started training people to fight, gathering intelligence, gathering resources. So it was one of the original rebel bases. And you start from there. You're one of the people that um, early on, your characters, volunteer to join this new uh, resistance group, and you're sent to Kintoni. And from there, all sorts of missions are conducted. So that started uh, in October of 2022. And we've had players come and go as all these, you can't keep everybody, things happen, but we've had a myriad of players, a core group that's been with us the whole time. Uh, we've gone mostly on. There's been a couple of months um, where things shut down. Christmas, the early part of summer last year, we didn't play because too many people had to take their kids on vacation, stuff like that. But generally, it's been going very strong since that October 2022 date. And it doesn't look like it's going to slow down anytime soon. Would always stand more people. So um, that's about a year and a half, almost 2 years now. There's a lot to tell. I couldn't possibly go through it all. But basically, where we're at is we're about a year out, time wise, from the events of the original 1977 movie. And when I say out, I mean prior to. The rebellion is declared as the Rebel Alliance now. When the game started out, it wasn't. And our characters are helping arm and supply the rebels through clandestine actions and gather intelligence. So on the Empire side, uh, they were fighting the remnants of the Confederacy for about a decade and a half after the official end of the war. And the reason was because it was a vast section, the CIS. It wasn't some small portion of the galaxy. It was a lot of people, and they had massive resources, and people didn't just some of their forces just didn't give up. So it took years to regain that territory and ultimately defeat all the separatist holdouts. That has recently happened. It's released the Imperial fleet to focus on its newest and most important threat, which is the rebellion that's spreading across the galaxy as we speak. And our people in our campaign is helping to do that. Like I said, by arming the rebels. Some of the other things that they've done in the past is rescue prisoners from the Empire, both civilian and uh, resistance forces, help create new resistance forces, uh, defeated Imperial plans to create technology that would help them subjugate civilians, all sorts of different things. It's really a lot of fun. So right now, the characters we have, which just kind of introduce you to the clan in case you want to play the group, as it were, the party. There's Magenta, and these are the characters, not the players. Magenta's played by a gal named Robin. She's a very nice lady, uh, and she's a medic and a leader of the group. So she's much more about saving life than taking it, but it's a rough situation, and you do what you got to do. So she's kind of the de facto leader. Um, Lots of fun, jovial, joking, good player. And we have Vance. Captain Vance is the name of the character. And some people don't share their actual names, and I respect their privacy. So the screen name is Zani. He's a good fellow from down south. He's the ship's pilot. The party has a ship. It's a YT 2400 freighter, similar to the Millennium Falcon, but it doesn't look the same. But it's the same manufacturer and about the same size. And so he's a fighter pilot that's in charge of the ship, kind of the captain of it. Then we have K4. He's an Australian fellow playing a cobbled together droid. The droid was made from parts of a protocol droid and parts from a war droid. So there's a slight programming conflict within the droid. So he's got a lot of personality for a droid. It's a neat character that he plays, and we have a lot of fun playing him. We have Malix, who's a near human slicer. He's the tech guy. He'll get you into the computers. If you need something rigged up real quick, he'll be able to help you out with that. He's a fair pilot himself in case you need a backup or a second ship involved. And he's real streetwise. His character came to us by being captured. He was a freelance slicer and computer operator. He was on a battle station, or it was a space station, not a battle station, space station, over a planet that was attacked by the Empire. And he found himself caught in the middle of that fight, and ended up being a prisoner of all things the Hutts, and some Carillion resistance forces rescued him and brought him to Cantoni, and he found his way into the rebellion that way. So he's not much on authority. He's not really. He's behind the cause because he's been put in a position that he has to serve the cause. Not a bad character, not a, but somewhat neutral and mercenary. But good player, a lot of fun. We've had people come and go that are more kind of guest stars than the actual stars. We'd like to have more regulars. So there's quite a large cast of NPCs that you can choose from. Just this night, we usually play about 8 p.m. Central Time on Saturday. And tonight's episode was a lot of fun. The players, it's a two-part. A lot of them are. They're not super complicated or super long, but they're usually two-part, two-session stories. This one, the group was in an Imperial research facility on the planet Low Tide. They were sent there to look for intelligence documents, and they made their way through that. They conned their way in, posing as Imperial security, and had some adventures. First, they had to deal with some scientists that were suspicious and odd. They made their way through that. Had to jump a couple of Imperial guards, and then con their way past the commander in some really neat role-playing sessions where they were interrogated as, where was your last mission? What's your number? They have cover identities. And I give the cover identities to the players, and the players have to remember them or write them down, because in some cases, such as this, they had to recite it to an NPC. Sorry about the chair. Someday I'll get it oiled. It's very old. Anyway, So it was a lot of fun role playing that. Everybody enjoyed it. It's the thing about the game. It's not some shoot 'em up all the time. It's a Star Wars story. There's going to be a battle. There's going to be a chase. It's a conflict. So yes, you're going to fight, but it's not just a bunch of murder hoboing. There's a lot of uh, puzzles to solve, a lot of role playing to be had, and a lot of things you just got to think your way through. So you don't always jump onto your blaster, um, but don't leave home without it either. So they made their way out of the facility um, by being smuggled out. While they were thinking they were about to leave, um, the security was multi-layered, and they were about to be scanned, and that scan of their person would, in their estimation, have betrayed their cover, which is likely true. They were carrying a piece of electronic equipment, actually a droid uh, that was portable droid, as weird as that is. Um, so they had to think quick, and they were presented with a prime opportunity, a prison transfer. There was a detention block at this facility. There's probably a detention block at every Imperials facility because Imperials. So they got a new NPC that they met. He was a captured rebel saboteur and spy, and working with their quick wits and their skills, they were able to break their way out of the facility. And as normally happens with our crew, who tend to be a little bit destructive and a little bit haphazard, they're often in trouble with their superiors for not maintaining the low profile that they're supposed to. They're they're a group that screw up their way to making it out most of the time. And in this situation, they got out um, by causing a ruckus, breaking through the security fence at the end of the Imperial facility and going out into Market City, which is one of the larger cities on the planet Low Tide. They were the local police were notified to apprehend a hijacked Imperial bus uh, once they broke through the gate. So they drove towards where they believed they were supposed to go, the spaceport, and they were largely heading in the right direction, but they ran into a traffic jam. And coming through the traffic jam was the local police, several patrols that had been informed and said, hey, they went this way. They're probably in this direction. Sure enough, they were coming. So they weren't going to get out in this repulsor lift bus. It didn't have a high altitude. It couldn't fly. So what they what they did is they decided to ditch it. So basically, what we had is a very action movie, kind of like an LA police chase thing. You run from the cops until you can't run anymore in the car, then you ditch the car and you try to run from them on foot. But they had two Imperial stormtroopers with them. They weren't their friends. They had conned their way out of the facility and kind of rushed them onto the bus as they were security for the prisoner, which was the rebel spy I was talking about. So they used the concussion grenades that come with stormtrooper armor to blow the bus up in the middle of traffic. Now they didn't want to kill anybody that was innocent, so they ran around trying to get everybody in the blast area to get out of their cars, hoping that confusion would slow down the police that were making their way through the crowd on foot towards them. And they ran off down an alleyway, and the bus exploded and made gave them some time to get away. So They ended up in a hideout. Uh, the prisoner was a local and was aware of some of the local criminal gang that would help get these people off for a price. So they were snuck out uh, on a utility truck towards the spaceport, and they were uh, given passage on a garbage barge off the planet, and where they were going to radio the rebellion, some of their friends, to come and pick them up. So overnight there was a rendezvous arranged to get them out. So what they got out was the information that was needed in order to raid an Imperial fleet that is carrying a fuel ship. Fuel is in the Star Wars role playing game, West End Games universe. Fuel is a thing. The lore gets a little bit contradictory throughout some of the different products, but in this universe, Star Wars, there is fuel for your ships, and the rebellion needed some, and so they got this information to find out where a large shipment of fuel was being sent to the Imperials. So next week, if you join, and we sure hope you do, you'll be part of a fairly large and exciting operation to hijack a giant fuel ship right out from under a understaffed Imperial escort fleet. So that's where we're doing with the thing. It's a very laid back deal. We're not super hardcore about the rules. We play fast and loose with them quite honestly. We don't ignore them, but I'm not going to. I'd rather, instead of having some bone of contention about some minor rule infraction or detail, I'd rather just go, move forward. Kind of the rule zero mentality to a degree, where instead of looking up, this is my definition of rule zero. There's a lot of definitions of it, but what I think of that is, instead of burying your nose in books to verify or understand some rule that's very specific, just go with your gut and move past it to keep things flowing. So we'd really like to see more people get involved. It is a joy. We do very little more than laugh and come up with zany ideas to get these people through. So love to have you play. You can join us on our Discord server. I'll put the link in below. So that's the Star Wars thing. What I'm trying to do now is just be live overnight. I wish I could do it at a more reasonable hour, but there it is. And instead of doing a bunch of small ones of certain topics, I just think I'm just going to stay live and just move from topic to topic. So that was the Star Wars thing. Some other things that are going on that I'm looking for more participants in is war game training. I do enjoy war games. I enjoy sci-fi, fantasy, historical war games. And I'd love to play with more people. People tend to have this, and understandably so, they have this attitude towards war games as being these ultra complex things that take too much time and mental energy to learn and all that stuff, even if they may be interested in the subject matter that they're covering. So what I've started doing is coming up with kind of I've been, I make it thematic, so I called it army training. I had, if you're familiar with stripes, I put the stripes in there. Remember the scene, army training, sir? They're on the parade ground, and if you haven't seen it, might. But the idea is just to go through some of the things that I've heard people say. Excuse me. Like, well, I don't know that all that jargon. I don't. Pardon me. I don't. I don't know all that jargon. I don't know anything about the tactics. Yeah, I like World War II, but I don't. I don't know the difference between an M10 and an M36 tank destroyer. Okay, well, those are the kind of things that we can go through. If you're somebody who finds the Second World War and the exploration of it in wargaming interesting, but like, well, it's all this information and I can't keep it all straight and all that. We have that. We can, give you, some tutorials on that. Now, here's the thing, even when you offer tutorials, you go, well, that sounds like school and that's no much better. Well, it ain't going to be like that. It'll be, I'm not going to sit in front of a chalkboard and, it's not going to be a classroom. We'll find ways to make it interesting and engaging so that you can learn this sort of stuff without feeling like you're, sitting at a desk with a teacher in front of you. We'll cover, like I said, the acronyms, the jargon, the tactics. We use our own rules mostly. I shouldn't say just, because we'll be using a couple other things, but showing how you can learn this stuff in an easier way instead of opening up a rule book and going, God, it already seems like too much because of the way it's arranged or whatever. We can show you how to kind of mitigate that sort of thing. And then we're going to talk about what we call, or it's not just what we call, to be honest, it's what people use, is the term free Kriegspiel. Now, I've had a friend that works with me in this venture admonish me for using the word Kriegspiel in America, but I think that's a little, I think you can handle it. Kriegspiel is a German word for war game. And free Kriegspiel is a phrase meaning essentially just means less rules. More rulings, less rules. So instead of stringent procedural, step one, do this, step two, do this, that kind of stuff gets a little bit boring and hard to deal with. You have somebody that referees the scenario between two or more players. It could be two players or two teams. And they give a more of a judgment factor about what's occurring in any particular point. You'll still get to roll dice and stuff like that. It's not deterministic. But again, instead of very math heavy or crunchy as some of these, that's a phrase a lot of people like to use to describe stuff that's complex. None of that. Just a little bit of a die roll, so you feel like you're rolling the. People like to roll the bones. That's part of the game. So they feel like they have some control over their fate. And beyond that, we take the difficulties and the headaches, the complex concepts, and the TLDR size rule books, and just kind of shove that aside. Say, okay, I'll make the ruling, as to what it is. And I do that, or one of my staff does that through their expertise. Well, veterans, been there, done that. Not always combat veterans. I mean, the idea behind free Kriegspiel historically, it was a tool to train real people, real soldiers in a real environment. And the instructors the intention was to have combat veterans for obvious reasons. But for what should be obvious reasons, not everybody doing this is going to be a combat veteran. PTSD being a thing, it's not really always that pleasant. But at least people who have enough experience to be a legitimate arbiter and expert based on, having been there, done that, even if it is in training and not actual war. So that's what we like to get into. But I've broken the thing down into several courses, and I use the word course even though I shouldn't, because I don't want people to think that you're going to school. But for lack of a better term, into several sections. So, what do you have trouble with? Learning the acronyms? Okay, we can learn that. Learning the jargon? Okay, we can do that. Um, pick and choose or do them all. Just a way to try to get people's feet wet without feeling like they're drowning. If they, have an interest going, well, I'd love to play that. It looks like it might be fun, but I just don't have the time or the inclination to put forth the effort to learn something that complex. Okay, we can alleviate that. So now you can go, oh, yeah, it does look like fun to play. And it is fun to play. And once you start playing, you realize how fun it is once you can circle around that. So that's another thing we're doing. We have a lot of other games going on. Love to show you some. Love to see you playing some. Love to talk. I've been running these lives, and I understand it's a odd hour of the night, but I'd sure love to hear from people. Now, if you're on Twitter, what I have heard is a lot of people. I have the most followers on Twitter than anywhere, I think, except for Getter, but nobody knows where the hell that is. And a lot of people said, "Hey, I watched you because I saw it come up on Twitter. I tried to say something on Twitter, but Twitter wouldn't let me." I didn't know that. I didn't know that you can't, like I can. But I've got the check mark. So apparently, if you don't have the check mark, you don't see. Well, oh, wait, I got to put on the screen sharing here. Let me show you. Screen sharing time. So the blue check mark. I know some people are like, oh, I know people that won't follow you on Twitter if you have a blue check mark. That's kind of silly too, but whatever. But Jesus, I spelled roll wrong like a doofus. What a dork. Okay, but I see this. I can type, but apparently some people can't. And heavens to Murgatroyd with that. I wonder if I can edit that in real time. Probably not. What a dumbass. Jesus. Um, but anyway.